Hi, Nadia. Great to see you.
Hi, sweetheart. Oh, God, I was just chatting with your son.
Oh, yeah. Here,
Welcome to the American Museum of Tort Law. I'm Rick Newman, the Executive Director, and it is a great pleasure to welcome you all here this evening for what should be a remarkable concert. I was talking to Adnaan. He started violin when he was 3. Now, I know that they make smaller sized violins for little tiny kids. But what I keep thinking is the violin was probably his size when he started. Anyway, he took lessons for years and became remarkably skilled at it. He has toured all over Europe and Africa and the Middle East, and it is a great pleasure. It's our tremendous pleasure to have you all here and to welcome, please, Adnaan Stumo.
Check. Oh. I'll be there in a sec. This thing takes a little bit to start. There we are. Thanks so much for coming out, guys. This is amazing. We got a full house here. My mother's done a great job publicizing it. This is a family affair. We're like the mafia, kind of.
Tort Museum did most of the publicity.
Yeah, the Tort Museum's great. I mean, so my uncle recommended this over Thanksgiving, and just, he says a word and everybody jumps to it. So he said maybe we should do a little publicity stunt, and here we all are. Thanks so much for coming out. I put a little bit of stuff on some blurbs that we sent out, but basically the story is I dropped out of college back in 2013 and went on the road and been drifting around for 6 years nearly now, and music has been the biggest boon to me that I could ever imagine. When I started way back when I was a little kid, I couldn't have imagined, where it would take me, and it's been, I'm not really, there's some musicians who are so passionate about their art, and they go to Berklee School of Music and they spend every day practicing for hours and hours, and they really throw their heart and souls into it. If I do that, in about 2 weeks, I'm burnt out and I need to take about a month break. So I kind of am one of those people who, if it's fun and I'm doing it just for fun, then it's great. And if I do it too long professionally, it burns me out. But for the travel stuff, it's the best way I've ever found to meet new people, to get in, to break in. I just recently traveled up to Israel and Palestine, and I went over to the West Bank, and I was on the bus, went through the checkpoint, and I heard some Spanish speakers up in the front of the bus. And the military guy gets on, and he comes through, and he checks our passports, and he checks people's visas and everything, and he got off, and at the end, I ran up to these Spanish speakers, and I was like, what are you guys doing here? And they said, oh, we're a Colombian band, we're traveling around the world, just paying for ourselves. And they were from a city that I visited in Colombia, and they said, oh, you got an instrument on your back, why don't you come join us? And I said, oh, well, where are you playing? And they said, oh, we got a gig down the way, this is our last gig in the area, and we're going to fly out to the Philippines after this. So I joined up, and I was going to just go watch them, but they ended up inviting me on stage. I played for the whole time with them, and we went to get a burger afterwards, and a big grizzled Palestinian guy comes over, and he says, what's your instrument? You better come play with us. And he said, do you have a place to stay tonight? I said, no, I didn't really plan that far ahead. And he said, it's 11 p.m., it's not that far ahead. And he invited me to stay with him for the week, and to play at his bar every night, and ended up playing with some oud players, and had a hell of a time. So it's been I wouldn't have quite such an easy time moving around if I didn't have this. But I started out with the classical music against my will. I really wanted to play country and Celtic stuff, but my mother forced me to play classical. And I'm not going to play very much of that for you tonight because I'm still a little bit gun shy, a little bit burned from that. But I'll start with some Celtic stuff that I love. Ooh. Better mute this for a second. Plug it in. Otherwise, we're going to get a big pop. get the master volume for the fiddle turned up very much at all?
I suppose I've got to do that from here. Yeah, that would be the place. Which one is the input?
Probably good, maybe a little down.
So, I've been used to playing for bars usually, where people are pretty boozy and everybody's really sober here, so it doesn't get much more sober than a Tort law museum. If you were boozy before you came here, you're sober now. But the idea was to kind of get people to look around the museum. So if you haven't done so before, you might get a little time after to check it out. I think it's very, very well done. From the Celtic stuff when I was a kid, I kind of moved towards, stuff that's a little bit more popular, contemporary. So I do like to play some stuff that's a little bit more rock and roll, and I had mixed experiences with it. I was going through Malaga in southern Spain a couple of years back, and I ran into a guitar player and a saxophonist. My phone is taking pictures. And yeah, we went and did a bunch of old rock and roll kind of, Johnny B. Good style stuff out in the plaza, and we were having a great time out in front of the church down in Malaga, and these other magicians came and sat up right next to us. And usually as street performers, you have a bit of a code of honor on the street. It's a little bit different against, if you're selling some art, right? If you've got your paintings or you're doing some magic, it's not quite the same as if you're two musicians, because you don't quite interfere with the audio the same bit. But still, to set up right next to somebody is a bit rude. So we thought, what are these guys doing? Where they put a little cordon out, and pretty soon they had a full audience all the way around. We couldn't even see what they were doing. They had a whole circle of people around them, and we were like, wow, we're playing pretty good music. Why are they, going and paying attention to these other guys who just showed up? And so we played louder. We tried to hold our own, and we had a few people watching, but people were kind of giving us some disapproving frowns as well, and I couldn't figure it out really. And this policeman eventually came up and told us to stop. He said, "Can we see your permits?" And in Malaga, they don't give out permits to play on the street, so. So the policemen usually let you go. They don't care as long as they like your music. But if they don't like you, they'll ask to see your permits. And of course they know that there's no way you could have a permit. So this is their little strategy. And so we said, of course we didn't have any. And they said, well, you better pack up and move on. So we did. And then we went over to see the magicians, because they hadn't stopped the musicians. And we said, well, they must know the governor or somebody. And we went up, and it was a couple of priests that were holding a memorial service for somebody. And we'd been playing Johnny B. Good. So felt a little guilty about that. We were wondering what everybody was wearing black for. Anyway, here's something a little more modern than Johnny B. Good. of those tunes that I've been playing for a long time, but I love it so much, not just because it's a good tune, but because it's got one of the best names and the most apt names that I know, and it's called Catharsis. So I went to Cape Verde last New Year, basically. I arrived a few days before New Year's 2017, and was going to sail on to Brazil across the transatlantic with a boat, but I got offered a job by a captain that was sailing there, and he said I'd crew for him I'd crew with him for a couple of weeks, and then get my own boat, because he had a second one that was just awaiting some registration. Gotta go slower next time. And I ended up getting a nice job with him, except it turned out he was really, really, like, racist, sexist, old Portuguese guy he'd take tourists out from Norway, and he'd make jokes that would have been off-color in the 50s, he's really, really, really behind the times, I think. But luckily, the girl I was dating at the time rescued me and got me a job at a chain of hotels playing music for their cocktail hour kind of thing. And it was great, but playing every day you get terrible. You get a little bored of it. So in order to keep myself entertained, I did some stuff where I tried to mix up some different genres of music. And so this, I figured out I can mix little pop and classical music. So shout out to Diane Silverio, my first teacher, who taught me a little bit of classical music here, and I'm bringing it on. Thank you very much. reckon we'll do a couple more and take a little bit of an intermission here. And get those fancy beers out in the hall. So we'll finish on a bit of a high note with a song that violinists are not supposed to play. I'm going to take 10 minutes and readjust this mic back up so I have good posture again. So thanks very much for coming, and we'll do a second half in 10 minutes, let's say, all right?
So, 10-minute break. The museum shop is featuring Ralph Nader's new book, and there will be the world premiere book signing in 2 weeks at the bookstore on Main Street. I don't know the exact...
414.
What?
414.
414 Main Street, the 29th. Ralph will be signing them. The books are available for sale here. We will flash the lights up and down when it's time to come back for your seats, but please enjoy the museum, look at the merchandise in the bookstore, and thank you for Adnaan Part 1.
I've always liked playing Irish music, but got to Ireland finally back in 2016, I guess it must have been, in the summer. And I came into Dublin because I was hitchhiking around in Britain and took the ferry across. And Dublin was the only city I'd ever heard of, so I just went there. And like immediately started looking around for an apartment, trying to set up my life. And I went to play in a bar with some, bunch of old guys actually playing mostly like Americana stuff, but just a session, as they call it. Everybody takes turns and they, make a tune and everybody else follows along. And after the set, one of the guys came up to me and he said, "What the hell are you doing here?" And I was like, "Well, shouldn't I be here?" And he's like, No, you should be over in Ennis, down in Clare." He said they got the Fleadh there. It's the biggest Irish traditional music festival in the world. And it lasts for like 2 weeks and everybody just goes mad. So I said, "Oh, well, that's a good idea." So next day I got on the bus and I headed over there. And I got there and drank and played for about a week, and and met a girl working at a cafe, and she said, "Well, what are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, shouldn't I be here?" She said, "No, you should be up in Galway. Galway's the best city." She said, "That's the place for the musicians." So I waited till the festival was over, and I went up to Galway, and it was a really rare day. It was sunny. And it was, you pull in the bus in Eyre Square, and it's like just all the it's a student city, college town, all the old buildings, all the medieval stone buildings all the way along, and everybody's out on the taking advantage of the sun, sunning themselves and picnicking out on the square. And I thought, wow, this is paradise. Well, it was the only time I ever saw the sun in that city, but I ended up staying for quite a while. But I had to make a little money. My phone was busted. I had to get enough for a hostel, and went down to the main street, Shop Street, to play. And I started playing, and halfway through my set, these two guys in leather jackets and aviators come, and they're smoking and leaning against the wall across from me, and just giving me a real hard stare, like, "You shouldn't be here." And I was like, "Again?" Everybody's kicking me out, putting me somewhere else. So I thought maybe this is some kind of gang and I'm on their territory, they're going to come. So as soon as I finish my tune, sure enough, they're going to come up and talk to me. So they saunter up and they stick their smoky faces right in my face, and they say, "Are you staying in town?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'm out to." He's like, "You want to join a band?" So I said, "Yeah, sure, why not? Let's jam out tonight, and we'll see if it works." So we're going on tour in France next month. So I ended up jamming with them till dawn that night, and we did a whole tour. We had lots of shenanigans. A couple people got arrested. I was an angel. I didn't do anything. If you meet any Interpol people, tell them I didn't do anything. So that was the Galway Street Club. But we'll do a couple of tunes anyway for the next half. Can't just talk. This is the Tartar Frigate. With this band I met out in Ireland, we did end up going on tour, and we went through France and Spain and Germany and Austria and the Netherlands. And down in Barcelona, we had a hell of a time. Had a hell of a time in a couple of places, but we were doing gigs on the weekends or when we could get them, and then in the meantime we'd be busking on the street, getting our bread and wine that way. And it turned out that in Barcelona they're really noise sensitive, and this was well, I think out there we were like a 9-piece, so it was quite a racket. And we got a couple of situations where we're playing in downtown, like a plaza, and we got a crowd and everybody's cheering and we got a whole thing, and the police come up and shut us down after a few songs, and the whole crowd, we got 100 people saying boo, you know, let them play, and this whole thing, and to no avail. So we finally got out to Barceloneta, which is the beach out there, and I guess the police didn't come around that way or anything, so we got to play for a few hours out there, and that wasn't a big deal. But it turns out, I mean, it's really hit and miss. You know, some places it's legal, like in Malaga, it's illegal, but you can still mostly play as long as you're any good, because they don't really care, you know. And in Barcelona, I had, in Granada, in Spain, it's all Spain, I had this weird situation where I was playing for a few weeks, and nobody bothered me. And there was this one policeman who just got a bee in his bonnet about me. And I don't know what it was, because every other, I'd play and there were cop cars driving by and policemen would walk by, and I thought, oh, I never checked the laws or anything, but I thought, oh, it must be legal, right? No, not illegal at all. So this guy comes up and he just, you know, he gives me a citation. He says, next time I'm going to confiscate all your equipment, all your violin and everything. So I better not see you next time. And so I thought, well, is he just, is this just an interpretation? So I walked down to the city hall and I got the info, and there were a few places you're allowed to play, and only at a certain time and only acoustically. So what I ended up doing, because this guy ended up kind of coming around and finding me a couple more times. And he was really like hunting me down anyway. So what I did is I went up this kind of tourist walkway along this little river. It's called Paseo de los Tristes. And it's where all the kind of, I don't know, vagabond, I don't know, like, kind of the tchotchke sellers and the people who, do all their, there's a lot of sub-Saharan Africans that come up and sell, some hats or some, they've got their little scarf spread out, and then when the police come, they'll bag it all up and run. And they've got a whole system there where there's like another guy who's a lookout down the way, and he'll give a secret signal, and then everybody packs up and gets out of there, and they never get caught. I've never seen anybody go to jail. So I was like, I'm going to hang out next to them, and they're going to work out really well. And I was it was a little cheap. I'm sure they were all putting in a cut for the lookout guy, and I never did, but it was a great system. Those guys, you got to find the street smart guys in town, and I never got bothered. I had to run pretty fast a couple of times. Let's see what's next. This is one of my favorites. I used to play this usually at night around Granada when I could. I'm headed down to South America, so we'll do a little bit of poppy stuff from there. Mix all together. was in France about a year ago, in Strasbourg, where the shooting just happened, and was on the street there, and I heard an acoustic gypsy band from the Balkans playing. And I stopped to listen to them and gave them a nice tip, and they stopped and chatted with me for a while after their set, and they taught me this tune. This is called Balamuk, and it means the house of fools or the house of crazy people. Thank you. This next one is another pop and classical mix, but it's something I got the seed of off a YouTube video. Okay, he's really amazing, and can't plug him because I don't know his name. But I added a bit to it and came out with this. This is not modern pop. This is 80s pop, I think. Thank you. I vaguely remember that.
Okay. Well,
let's do a piece of music I saw in a children's movie called Madagascar. And it's got a great soundtrack. This one's a little funky. I like it for that reason. This one I learned a couple years ago, and it just didn't work. And then somehow, a couple years later, it just clicked. And I'm going to try and remember it now. I'm going to do a different one. Okay, we'll do one last one. We'll leave you on a creepy, sad note. So. Okay, the last one. We'll do a classic one for that. Been pre-recorded all along. I had an old lady in West London come up to me and accuse me of airboeing.
Here we go. Let's see.
It's all part of the rosin. Yeah. Don't you tell her it was all part of the rosin?
Encore!